Hello, today I will be talking about conjunction, an astronomical and astrological alignment where two or more celestial bodies meet in the same degree of the zodiac. So when we talk about aspects, they're basically seen as either challenging or harmonious, and it all depends on the symbolic meaning behind the numbers they come from. So the conjunction comes from the number 1, which is all about oneness. So when two planets are in conjunction, it's like they're merging or coming together as one, blending their energies. And this aspect comes from dividing the circle by the number 1. So two planets in exact conjunction are either 360 degrees apart, or if you look at the shorter way around, right on top of each other at 0 degrees, since 360 divided by 1 is 360. And when two planets are within about 8 degrees of each other, they're considered conjunct. And because it's all about oneness, this is a really important and major aspect. Many philosophers have pondered the meaning of conjunction. The ancient Greeks spoke of the kenosis, the mystical union with the One. In astrology, conjunctions can symbolize this striving toward unity. Psychologically, they represent moments of heightened potential where conflicting forces within the psyche may harmonize or clash, depending on the nature of the planets involved. The number 1 is all about unity. The word unit usually means a single thing, but when two separate things come together, the phrase at one with each other usually describes that connection. So when two planets are in conjunction, they are in a relationship of oneness. In an exact conjunction, both planets occupy the same point in the circle. Because they appear together in the same spot, it can almost look like one bigger planet. Their energies blend and merge into a single unified whole. This means those two planetary principles always combine when they express themselves. Because planets in conjunction are so close together in the zodiac, they usually end up in the same house. And when that happens, it points to a strong focus or concentration in whatever area of life that house represents. But if the conjunction happens between planets in two different houses, it can take some effort to connect those two parts of life and bring them into a sense of oneness. Now, usually both planets in a conjunction are in the same zodiac sign, which puts a strong focus on that way of expressing energy. But when it comes to something called a dissociate conjunction, where the planets are in different signs, the two energies might not blend as smoothly as usual. And even though the connection is still one of unity, it can take more effort to bring those planetary principles together. The differences between the signs actually make it easier to tell the two planets apart, so this kind of conjunction tends to feel less subjective. Either way, this fusion intensifies their combined influence, creating a concentrated force in the birth chart or transit. When a conjunction takes place during an eclipse, whether solar or lunar, this alignment becomes even more potent. Eclipses are astronomical events where the Earth, Sun, and Moon align precisely, causing a temporary shadow. From an astrological perspective, eclipses symbolize moments of transformation and revelation, where hidden or unconscious elements emerge into awareness. In this context, the conjunction acts as a focal point within the eclipse's transformative energy, amplifying the planetary themes involved. The eclipse acts like a cosmic accelerator, speeding up processes of change, insight, and sometimes upheaval. This makes conjunctions during eclipses critical junctures or cosmic inflection points, where shifts can occur rapidly and with lasting impact. In traditional astrology, a conjunction is considered the most potent aspect because it represents a merging or fusion of planetary energies. Ancient astrologers like Ptolemy and Vettius Valens view the conjunction as a moment of synthesis where influences combine to create new possibilities. Unlike other aspects which denote tension or harmony from a distance, conjunctions signify an intense, almost alchemical union. Now, Ptolemy in his Tetrabiblos describes conjunctions as the most forceful of aspects, stating that the conjunction is a most potent aspect because it joins two bodies in one place, producing a unity of force. And this unity means the planets' influences combine, sometimes amplifying or sometimes muting each other depending on their nature. And medieval astrologers like William Lilly saw conjunctions as marriages of planets, moments when their energies fused and produced major life events or transformations. Most people think of conjunctions as alignment, two planets meeting, combining their forces, moving in sync. And while that's true on the surface, occult tradition suggested something deeper and something stranger. A conjunction was more than a meeting in space, it was a breach in the ordinary. Hermetic philosophy and the Corpus Hermeticum speak of the macrocosm reflected in the microcosm. The universe within us mirrors the universe without. A conjunction can be seen as a moment where the divine energies, be they masculine and feminine, light and shadow, or spirit and matter, coalesce or come together to form one whole, in this way triggering transformation and initiation. In Vedic astrology, conjunctions or yuti carry equally heavy importance but are framed within the concepts of dosha or affliction and yoga or auspicious combinations. Now, the Brihad Parashara Horashastra states a conjunction of planets increases the strength of each involved, creating yogas that may indicate fortune or misfortune depending on the planets and houses affected. Now, Vedic astrologers highlight the Rahu-Ketu axis as well, where conjunctions with these shadow planets have karmic and transformative significance. The joining of planets here symbolizes intensified energy as well as lessons and potential trials. In modern astrology, the conjunction remains a symbol of synthesis and new beginnings. It symbolizes moments of initiation, integration, and transformation. However, it has been enriched by psychological and symbolic interpretations. And here I'll bring in Carl Jung, who sometimes engaged with astrology to illustrate his concept of synchronicity or meaningful coincidences that reveal deeper connections between the psyche and the cosmos. As Jung might say, the conjunction is a symbolic mirror reflecting the union of inner opposites, the merging of different psychic contents into a unified whole. It represents potential wholeness and integration, a moment when diverse elements of the self come together in creative tension. Now, similar concepts of the conjunction can be found in this book, Mysterium Conjunctionis, and some of his other works. From a Jungian perspective, a conjunction corresponds to a moment in the individuation process, a breakthrough in the psyche where unconscious elements come into conscious awareness. Jung did refer from time to time to alchemical texts in his exploration of inner development, and he saw the conjunction as a symbol of psychological integration. The self is no longer fragmented, it becomes whole. Shadow and ego do not meet in conflict, but in conversation. In alchemical psychology, the conjunctio, the union, is not blissful at first, it is quite disruptive. This is the nigredo phase, the first phase of the alchemical process, and it represents confusion, loss, or collapse before the new self can be born. In this sense, conjunction isn't always a positive alignment. It is the collapse of borders, the tearing down of old forms. Jung taught that the union of opposites steers the unconscious, so what rises to the surface first is usually shadow, not clarity. In astrology, a conjunction, when two planets or points come together, marks the beginning of a cycle. The opposition, when they're directly across from each other, shows the full expression of that energy. And when they meet again in another conjunction, the cycle comes to a close, folding back into the self. And you could compare it to a musical duet, two voices blending to convey a shared emotion or experience. And if you've ever felt the emotional pull of a well-sung duet, you'll understand this intuitive meaning behind a conjunction. Or it might look like two friends setting out on a journey together, or two aspects of human inner nature working in harmony, supporting each other along the way. Now, astrological tradition gives us an image or example of this. At the birth of Christ, Jupiter and Saturn were said to be in conjunction, representing idea and form coming together. On a more practical level, when multiple planets come into conjunction, it can feel less harmonious and more like a crowd of people all trying to get through the same door at once, each blocking the other's path. Now, in astrology, this can show up when many planets are clustered in a single sign or house. Instead of amplifying that area of life, it can actually create a kind of dullness or confusion, like there are too many voices speaking at once, making it hard to know which one to follow. The result is not intensity or force, but more indecision and fog. And this is especially true when the planets are in tension with the sign they occupy, or when the person lacks a clear point of synthesis. Now, theosophists would say there's a karmic knot to be worked through, a challenge to evolve through complexity. And also the so-called great conjunctions, when major outer planets align, like those of Jupiter and Saturn every 20 years, These mark the beginning of extensive news cycles, more collectively than personally. They're seen as pivot points in history. In occult terms, they signify moments when humanity is collectively ready to initiate the next phase of its evolution. New structures, new philosophies, new spiritual paradigms begin to take shape. In Hermeticism, the conjunction is the conjunctio, the divine marriage of opposites, sun and moon, masculine and feminine, spirit and matter. It is the moment alchemists long for, when polarities don't cancel each other out, but fuse into something greater. As above, so below becomes more than mystical phrase. It is now a formula for integration. Conjunction marks the point where tension gives way to unity and where duality is transcended. During conjunctions, especially involving outer planets, certain occultists believe that the veil between planes becomes more permeable. These are windows, brief ones, where symbolic energy becomes operative. In other words, what would normally be symbolic becomes for a moment real. Ideas gain form and inner states leak into the outer world. So whether we are talking about the alignment of planets, the balancing of inner forces, or the blending of spiritual and material realities, the conjunction always carries the same essential message. Something is ending, something is beginning, and in that moment of meeting, transformation becomes possible. While modern astrology emphasizes personality and cycles, ancient Babylonian astrologers focused heavily on conjunctions as omens, especially of kingship, war, or divine favor. So, for example, again, conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was seen as a signal of a new ruler rising or the fall of an empire. In some cases, the king would be replaced temporarily to avoid the danger foretold by the stars, literally substituting a decoy monarch to protect the realm, just to trick fate. So imagine the logic, better a false king be struck by destiny than the real one. And we could use this to draw a parallel. Even today, we sense these conjunctions as power shifts eternally or externally, though we no longer cloak them in ritual. Some esoteric schools teach that when a conjunction occurs, and especially when it activates your natal chart, you're offered a hidden initiation, a kind of inner test or invitation. You may not realize it, but something is being asked of you. Can you step through this doorway? Can you hold the opposites together without falling apart? And this is an idea you may not usually find in mainstream astrology books. It is more of a silent teaching passed through esoteric circles. Psychologically, this is a wrestle with the parts of ourselves that the conjunction has stirred awake. The opposing forces don't simply merge and vanish. They dance, merging so closely that their qualities blend, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in tension. This is the space where true growth happens, where transformation becomes a lived experience. For some, this manifests as inner conflict, doubt, or frustration, and for others, it is a deep well of creativity and resilience. Either way, the conjunction asks us to grow beyond simple answers, to integrate contradictions, and to hold paradox without fear. So when you see a conjunction in your own chart, think of it as a living symbol of your inner journey, a call to explore the spaces between and find harmony where it seems impossible. You are invited to hold opposites within, to transcend simple either-or thinking, and to craft a more complex self. For example, a conjunction between Mercury and Venus might create a natural charm in communication, an ease in expressing feelings through words or art. But a conjunction between Mars and Saturn could bring a tension between drive and discipline or ambition and caution, thus requiring patience and maturity to balance. Or the Moon conjunct Jupiter, a blend of deep emotion and expansive hope. This union can gift a person with warmth, generosity, and a natural optimism. But it can also stir moods that expand beyond measure, causing a psychological journey to balance faith with reality. Venus and Mars in conjunction suggest the eternal dance of love and desire, attraction and assertion. This alignment indicates passionate relationships and creative energy, but challenges to navigate the fine line between harmony and conflict, or between surrender and self-expression. Or Uranus conjunct the Sun. Here we see the spark of rebellion fused with identity. This conjunction may mark a person who is unconventional, fiercely independent, and drawn to sudden change. Psychological, it is a call to break free from old patterns, even when it threatens the very core of who they think they are. And Neptune conjunct Saturn, the meeting of illusion and structure, dreams and reality. This can inspire spiritual vision and creativity, but also confusion and disillusionment. It, let's say, demands building solid foundations out of the intangible to ground the ethereal without crushing it. So each planetary pairing in conjunction tells its own story. Each conjunction is a microcosm of our inner world, complex, sometimes contradictory, yet always alive and vibrant. But the conjunction is only the beginning of a deeper journey. After the moment of meeting, the burst of energy, the collapse of old forms, comes the slow, unseen work of integration. It is not glamorous or immediate, it is the quiet unfolding that follows the disturbance or the storm. The alchemists called it the albedo, the whitening, when clarity begins to emerge from the before-mentioned nigredo or chaos, when shadow softens into light. But in alchemy, albedo cannot be fully lived out in material world. This glimpse, a peak moment, is by nature fleeting, and for that clarity to take root and become reality, there has to be rubedo, the final stage of transformation. But this is a topic for a different video. Nevertheless, as you move through life, pay attention to those moments, those inner conjunctions where opposing forces meet. In that tension, in that fragile balance, lies the doorway to your own becoming. So step through it, and you just might discover who you really are. Thank you for joining me today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Do you have any conjunctions in your natal chart? And if so, how have they impacted your life or shaped your personality? Also, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week. Bye!